If you're an IMG applying to internal medicine residency, then you know probably already how important it is to apply to the right residency programs. And for an IMG, one strategy that can really help you with a successful match is applying to IMG-friendly residency programs. I'm Dr. Rajani Katta, and together with my partner, Dr. Samir Desai, and our colleagues at the Successful Match website and MD2B Connect, we have worked with hundreds of IMGs and have seen them successfully match over and over again into multiple specialties all over the country. For applicants applying to internal medicine, there's certainly a number of options across the country for you to apply to. But what we have found is that the most successful applicants are really deliberate about the programs that they target. Now, we know that many IMGs are applying to 100 or more internal medicine residency programs. But using that kind of scattershot approach is really not the best strategy. The best strategy focuses on two main things. The first is programs at which you have some sort of a tie or connection. That might be a geographic connection. So perhaps you have an address, perhaps you live in that state. It might be a professional connection. It might be a program at which you've done research or which you've done a rotation. It might be a connection in the sense of you've worked with a professor who is now at a different internal medicine residency program. But that's only part of it. The other part of it is that there are going to be a lot of programs at which you have no direct, obvious connection. And this is where it's so important to really think about these IMG-friendly residency programs. So, what do we mean by IMG-friendly residency programs? Well, these are programs that have a history of accepting IMGs into their residency program. So that brings us to the really important question, which is how can you locate IMG-friendly residency programs? Well, to begin with, let me say that an IMG-friendly residency program is one that has a history of accepting IMGs within the last 5 years. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of differences within that group, so we break it down to top tier, middle tier, and lower tier of IMG-friendly programs. And in the top tier, these are programs where you have 50% or more of the residents are IMGs. Middle tier, we consider that 25 to 50% are IMGs, and then lower tier is when you have less than 25%. So how can you locate this information? Well, certainly you can start with a Google search, but that's a lot of data to go through. That's why at MD2B Connect, we created our own tool. So I'll put a link to this in the video description, but this tool has involved many hours of going through and collating all of this data about not just what percentage of residents are IMGs, but also data such as USMLE score cutoffs, if they offer visas, whether or not they have a graduation cutoff date. So I would really recommend looking at this tool when you are starting your search. And again, I'm going to include a link to that, but you can find it from the website md2bconnect.com. What are some of the most IMG-friendly states for internal medicine residency? Well, if you look at our tool, what you'll find is that 46 states have at least one residency program that's considered IMG-friendly. Now, having said that, that sounds like a lot, 46 states. But if you look through that, you'll find that a lot of states have only one IMG-friendly program. So, for example, Colorado only has one program. So you really want to be very deliberate about targeting states geographically. So let's break it down a little bit more. So what are some of the states that have multiple IMG-friendly residency programs? Well, for this one, I'm going to refer to my notes. So when we did the research, we found that New York State had 37 programs, followed closely by Florida with 24 programs. And I think a lot of IMGs think about New York and Florida, certainly having a large immigrant population. But I think a lot of students may not recognize that Michigan is another state that has a great number of IMG-friendly internal medicine residency programs. So Michigan has 23 programs that we identified as IMG-friendly. After that, we identified Connecticut with 12 programs, and then California with 11 programs. So the top 5 states, IMG-friendly internal medicine residency programs, it's New York State, it's Florida, it's Michigan, it's Connecticut, and then it's California. So as you're thinking about those numbers, you can start to plan out your strategies. So what are some of the specific details that you can find out about programs that are considered IMG friendly? So obviously there's a lot of difference between these residency programs. And for this section of the video, I'm going to read out some information from our tool that is specific to programs in Michigan. And I think this information is fascinating and it's really helpful when you're planning out your strategy. So I'll start with one. If you are, there is a program at East Lansing, Michigan called Michigan State University Program. And this one's promising because 66% of their residents are IMGs. And in terms of step 1 and step 2, they require greater than 200 on those scores. They do offer a J1 visa, and importantly, they do not have a cutoff for graduation date. So that's a promising program. Now I'm going to mention another program that's very considered IMG friendly, and this is Western Michigan University, where they have 46% are IMGs. So this might be considered our mid-tier IMG friendly. But this one really has a lot stricter requirements. So for their step 1 and their step 2 score, they prefer greater than 250. They also prefer a graduation date within the past 2 years. They do offer a J1 visa, but as you can see, you would save yourself a lot of time if you don't have those cutoff scores or that graduation cutoff, not even applying to this program. Now, let's contrast this with a program called Ascension St. John Hospital Program, where 78% are IMGs. Now, they don't have a cutoff score for step 1, although it is required to apply. Step 2, not required to apply. And they do offer both J1 and H1B visas. So you can start to see, and then I'm just going to add in one more program because I think this one's interesting. This is McLaren Healthcare, and this is in Flint, Michigan, where 100% of their residents were IMGs. And for this one, they are requiring a passing score on step 1 and step 2, but they're not requiring cutoff numbers. They are they're stating that they want a medical school graduation within the past 5 years, and they do not offer any visas. So you'll start to see how important it is to really go program by program to try to find these particular details and how they apply to your qualifications, to your particular situation, whether or not you're seeking a visa, depending on your particular step scores and your graduation cutoff date. So I highly recommend going through this tool step by step and to really compare it to your situation, and do not do the scattershot approach where you're just applying to a bunch of programs. You really want to be very deliberate and thoughtful about the programs to which you're applying. So what should an IMG applicant do with this information? Well, this is where once you've identified the particular programs where you might fit those criteria and where the program might fit your criteria, this is when you really start thinking about commonalities. So one of the most important things that I emphasize in my book, The Successful Match, is that residency programs are looking for an applicant who fits with their program. And there are a lot of different ways to demonstrate fit. Certainly one of the easiest is geography, and that's very baseline, but it's an easy place to start. So if you've identified programs in Michigan, multiple programs in Michigan, this is where you start to think, can I complete rotations in Michigan? Do I have any geographic connection to Michigan? A permanent mailing address? Have I done rotations there? Do I have connections to current residents in that program, or a mentor or faculty members? These are all ways to demonstrate geographic fit. Beyond that, you can go step by step into these programs, and certainly geography is very helpful, but I consider it the baseline. Beyond that, you start to think about other ways to demonstrate fit with particular residency programs. So if you're applying to Flint, Michigan, does their program perhaps emphasize social determinants of health? Does it demonstrate care for the underserved? Does it talk about healthcare disparities? If these are missions that are important to the residency program, these are items that you can think about. Well, how have I demonstrated my interest in one or more of those same missions? How can I demonstrate that further in my application materials? And so perhaps a rural healthcare program in Michigan is not something that fits with your interests, your missions, and your demonstrated service or leadership or volunteer activities. On the other hand, perhaps care for an urban population does. So you can start to think about those other indicators of fit and where you should be targeting your applications to. So I want to wish you all the best as you apply to your internal medicine residency programs. It's certainly, I know, a very challenging process. We do have a number of resources available to help you. As I mentioned, our IMG friendly program tool is available on our website, md2bconnect.com, and we have a number of other resources available on our website for residency match in general, which is the successful match. So I'm Dr. Rajani Katta, and I want to wish you all the best in your residency program search and successful match.